Good morning. Happy New Year. Welcome again to another session of Facebook Live. This morning we're coming to you from a very cold campus. In fact, April and her production crew and myself, John Sautter from the Alumni Association, came over here at, I think the temperature said 0 and a wind chill of minus 15. But we wanted to provide a little reminder to those of you out there. Remember those cold days walking across campus where you had negative wind chills and those sorts of things. In a couple cases, I can remember, actually they canceled classes. It was so cold, but not today. This is just a nice January winter on campus. Today we're going to go inside the Ralph and Betty Bailey Hall on campus to talk about the Purdue Musical Organizations. And just to give you some bearings, we're actually at the corner of Grant and Northwestern, across from the Kenoi Technology Building. Down the street is the Grissom Hall. Further yet is the Union Building. We're actually on the corner, an island, where the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity used to be located. Attractive house, which I think had infrastructure problems, and eventually they moved out closer to the acres. The building was torn down, and in 2014, October 2014, the Ralph and Betty Bailey Hall was dedicated. This is the new home of the Purdue Musical Organization. Ralph and Betty Bailey. Ralph Bailey was a 49 mechanical engineering graduate of the university, and he and Betty gave the lead gift towards this $7.6 million facility, the new home to the Purdue Musical Organizations. Purdue Musical Organizations for many years were housed in the Hall of Music in several floors, going up the steps every day to offices and lounges and those things, including the Purduettes and a variety of others. Before that, they were actually in the original Fowler Hall on campus. Before that, the original University Hall on campus. But now, today, they finally have their own beautiful home, and we thought it would be worth highlighting. We're going to go inside the facility, and you'll see they have large and small rehearsal rooms. They have a student lounge, a study area for those in the musical groups. There are actually over 300 students involved in the different musical organizations on campus, giving over 120 performances a year around the country, with the different groups participating. And of course, they're all involved with the world international famous Christmas show that they put on every year that many of you have experienced over the years. So the Purdue Musical Organization has a great history, which we're going to talk about as we walk through and see the different things within the facility. So with April and the production crew, we're going to make our way inside, see what it's about. So follow us. Hope we don't fall. There we go. Now we're entering the facility. First thing we're going to do is go to the lounge. I'm sure you all like my hat. It is warm. This is the student lounge where the students can come in on breaks between classes and that sort of thing, and have a look around. The words to the Hall of Music, to Hail Purdue, are posted on the wall as a great reminder. But it's just another great facility for the students who give so much of their time and energy to the Purdue Musical Organizations to have a facility like this. And this is actually dedicated to Al Stewart, the Al Stewart Lounge. And so speaking of Al Stewart, we have a nice statue of Al outside. As we talk about the history of the Glee Club and PMO. And so Al Stewart founded PMO. PMO actually was started originally in 1893, about 125 years ago. In fact, they will be celebrating their 125th anniversary, October 19th and 20th, this coming fall on campus. And so they're really trying to get the word out to as many people as possible to come back to campus and be a part of that, a variety of performances. Everybody will be involved, and it'll just be a great weekend. But 1893, they were founded with 11 students, and Cyrus Dadswell was the original director of the Glee Club back in 1893. And so they started, kind of had some floundering years, but eventually continued to sing and perform. But since we don't have a music school and really didn't have a lot of participation until around 1933. 1933 is when Al Stewart arrived on campus. Al Stewart was the director of the PMO for over 40 years, starting in 1932, 1933. He was only here 1 year, and the second year he was here, we had a Christmas show, and started the PMO organization, and started adding a variety of performing groups to their repertoire. And so they started involving more students on campus. And if I take you back to, now we're in the 1933, 34, 35 or so, great time to be on campus. President Elliott, our sixth president, Edward C. Elliott, was on campus, and it's at the time where he is starting to, wanting to establish Purdue as a major player in the higher education field, and even more than that, he's trying to get higher education established as a mindset to citizens throughout the country. And so all of a sudden he saw this as an avenue to do that. And I wanted to show a picture. He actually made sure that there was an opportunity for the Glee Club to go to Carnegie Hall. And so here's a photo in 1942 of President Elliott escorting the Glee Club down to the train station downtown as they caught the train to go to Carnegie Hall and make a performance. And here's a statue of Al Stewart. I wanted to share a photo of Al Stewart during the last few years of his career. Some of you would be very familiar with Al Stewart. Again, the head of PMO for over 40 years or so. When Al Stewart relinquished the directorship of the PMO and Glee Club, the Glee Club director, Bill Luman, took over in 1974. He was followed by Bill Allen, who took over in 1983. Brian Breed took over in 1989, and the current director, Bill Griffel, actually took over in 2004 or so. And Bill Griffin is actually the director right now of the Glee Club. So we're going to start looking through the facility. I wanted to point out a thank you to donors. Facilities like this don't just happen, it takes donors. And so it takes loyal folks who are dedicated. Sam and Karen Slosher, for one, who are loyal and dedicated folks who make contributions. These are all the folks who gave gifts of $1,000 or more towards the construction of the building. These and future campaigns for buildings on campus really appreciate the help of alumni all along the way. And so it's good to point that out. Here's a nice portrait of Ralph and Betty Bailey. Ralph, again, the major donor. Interesting, Ralph actually was not in the group itself, but he liked to attend the performances when he was studying for mechanical engineering. Always appreciated the Glee Club and the uplifting feelings he had coming away from those concerts, to the point that they made a significant donation. Now we're going to walk into one of the larger practice rooms. This is where the Glee Club and the University Choir actually practice. The Glee Club practices 3 times a week, 11:30, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you happen to be on campus, you're welcome to stop by and visit a practice. I have to warn you, you may end up singing a solo, though. It's a very involved, very dynamic practice session that they give. I wanted to point out some of the signs that they have reminding students as to what they're doing, how they're participating. Interesting signs along the way to keep the students mindful of all the different things that they're doing. The Glee Club travels extensively. In fact, they just got back from a trip to St. Louis, got back last night. So a lot of time and attention is given to the students in terms of the trips and the commitment that they have to make to the Purdue Musical Organizations. Now we're going to go down the hall where we have more practice rooms and just some great history here as we talk about the different organizations within the Glee Club. And so this highlights the Glee Club. Again, they've do a great job of performing all over actually the country. They have traveled to Australia and Africa and Europe. And this past spring, they took a trip to Poland and the Baltic area of Europe. And so if you're interested, actually, you don't have to be a member of. If you're interested in being a part of some of those groups, sometimes it's entirely possible to make some of those trips. I think they try to take a trip about every 3 years or so to give the students involved an opportunity for international travel. Again, 1893, they originally were founded, but had a lot of evolution over the years. Bana now continues to be one of their more popular groups that sing the 50s or so. They always have a first nighter on campus, a free concert for the students. They certainly are the ambassadors that President Eliot actually had envisioned. In fact, part of the motivation for the Hall of Music on campus was to have a theater available for the Glee Club to perform. Not the sole motivation, obviously, but it really, when it became the new home for PMO, just opened up. At the time, it was opened up in 1940. The Hall of Music actually was the largest indoor performing theater in the entire country. And so it attracted celebrities into some of their performances here. Quite a few got involved in Victory Varieties, which we're going to talk about just a little bit later. But that facility itself was very unique at the time. The Purduettes were established in 1942. That's as World War II was picking up. We needed an additional group, and so that's when they really kind of came into their prominence at the time, and they've continued ever since to have their performances. They do a lot of choreography within the group. Another nice opportunity. Heart and Soul is a group that was established in 2004, and it's been a group that's performed in a variety of sites on campus. One here, they're doing the new national anthem. And again, Purdue Musical Organization involves about 300 students or so. So there's a different group for just lots of different folks. University Choir, 1933, another group that's continued. And then Purdue Bells has a nice history of 1979. They were established, and they're always a highlight at the Christmas show every year, but in addition to a lot of the performances that they make. We want to have another look now at some of their practice facilities. They are really blessed with some very, very nice facilities here. This is the room where the Purduettes practice. All the lights are on motion detectors, I think, and so there it goes. And so the interesting thing in this room is they actually have mirrors on the wall as they perform. For a lot of the choreography, they do a lot of dancing within their performances, and you've got to be able to see how that's impacting the audience, and so no better way than to have the mirrors as they perform within this facility. There's a nice picture that has some vintage to it in terms of from the group when they first got established in 1942. We come across the hallway now. Motion, here we go. Now we're into where the Purdue Bells perform. Very unique practice facility, as you can tell with the bells that are set up around the room. Again, they have a mirror in the room for paying attention to their presentation as they practice their performances. Nice facilities, very nice facilities. Again, for a school that doesn't have a school of music, they've dedicated it a lot of time and talent and facilities and resources to that. This display case highlights another group more recently established in 2003, the Campus and Community Chorale. This involves people from the community. And so anyone from the community, as well as Purdue alumni who continue to want to sing and be a part of these performances, are welcome to join this. They have a practice once a week. They have a presentation. A performance is done at the Long Center, downtown Lafayette, once a semester. These final two display cases talk a little bit more about the history of PMO. And this one I want to highlight. They've really been doing some recording, so you can see some of the original record jackets from some of the Glee Club performances, which have advanced. And then we had cassette tapes. And nowadays we even have DVDs and we have CDs available. And if you're like me, you have some of these at home. There's one called the Purdue Lullaby, where they sing lullabies, which is one of my favorites along the way. Let's have a look at this picture here. Here's a nice vintage picture of Al Stewart with the Glee Club back in the day. Just a great guy to be around, dynamic leader. And again, Joe Bennett in his book, Boilermaker Music Makers, does a nice job of capturing Al Stewart and how he brought the entire PMO organization into prominence. This is available through University Press, if interested in that. Now we're going to walk up the hallway towards one more display case. This is the display case dedicated to the Glee Club and their Hall of Fame, which are dedication, commitment, excellence, those top performers over the years. I should add, with a full disclaimer of information, that I was involved in the Sire program when I was in my position as the vice president, which meant that you were matched up with one of the officers of the Glee Club. They have a variety of committees. All the committees have chairs, and they have a manager, and so you're matched up with one of these top-notch individuals, and so you...
John,
yes.
Brandon Teek has responded saying that he sees his picture.
Yes, Brandon Teek. I was going to highlight Brandon Teek is in our display case, one of the top performers in 1999 with his degree in biology, it says. So, Brandon, nice to have you watch us. I know you're a loyal follower. We like hearing from you all the time. So these are some of the top people, and of course Brandon's one of those, but just an excellent program. And as we see some of those from the earlier years, as I've gone to alumni club meetings, I've met several folks who will come up and proudly tell me that their picture is in the display case in the PMO headquarters here in Bailey Hall these days. This last display case, we're going to kind of close here, talks about Al Stewart and some of the history, and actually gets into where they've done some of their performances. And you can see Prairie Home Companions down here, Bob Hope and that sort of thing. And this gets us into Victory Varieties. Victory Varieties was Al Stewart's brainchild, starting back in the 1940s, mid-1940s, and it went to as late as the 1970s. Victory Varieties were held on the Friday nights before home football games. And this is in a time when celebrities were looking to get out across the country and perform. They were looking for a positive venue, and our Hall of Music, with 6,000 seats, an indoor facility, largest indoor facility in the country, turned out to be quite attractive. Al Stewart had a lot of contacts in New York and Chicago, and so he was able to make contact with a lot of celebrities, and they would bring these celebrities in for concerts. And all the big names that you might think of, Bob Hope gave 4 shows in 2 days once upon a time, and they would just build on each other. They would say it's a good place to be, and you ought to go. And so over those years, you could go see those. In fact, there was a recent article in the Journal Courier where Bob Kriebel highlights things that have happened at Purdue over the last 150 years. And this particular one, actually from in December, was Al Stewart remembering Victory Varieties and some of the performers that were there, and what was Al Stewart's comments about some of those performers. And so the article goes on to say that on these Friday nights, if you were lucky enough to get a ticket, you could go to these and you'd be greeted by the Glee Clubbers in their tuxedos, and they would take you to your seat. And as the house lights went down and the stage lights came on, a hush came over the audience and the performers came out. And so there were performers that included lots of folks: Jack Benny, Pat Boone, Eddie Cantor, Nat King Cole, Jimmy Dean, Ferrani and Tyser, Jose Feliciano, Robert Goulet, Woody Herman, Lawrence Welk, Johnny Mathis, Flip Wilson, Kingston Trio, Peter, Paul, and Mary. Actually, at one alumni club, an alumni told me he heard the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I hadn't heard that name for a while. But then Al's comments on some of these folks. He said about Jack Benny, one of the all-time great guys, gave me an autographed fiddle after a visit here in 1969. And I have to tell you, my first visit to campus was in 1969 to visit a high school buddy, and he set me up with a date, a girl from Shealy Hall, and we went and heard Jack Benny, and I paid $5 for that ticket to go hear Jack Benny. Eddie Cantor, I liked him very much, but he had a little guy with him who kept pressing me to let him sing. I said, nothing doing. He said he was pretty good. He kept pressing me, so I let him do one number. He was pretty good. The kid's name was Eddie Fisher. Nat King Cole. Nat canceled out on us over a big misunderstanding with his agent. Later, Ed Sullivan told him it was a big mistake, that Purdue was a first-class place to play with one of the world's great theaters. So Cole came another time. He couldn't have been nice enough. He was just great. There's nobody I've liked more. So on and on it goes with the different folks that Al Stewart had a chance to interact with. Great times. Came the late 70s, or early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, as rock groups started arriving and the ticket prices started going up and they needed larger audiences. The whole Victory Variety concept just kind of faded, unfortunately. But a lot of great memories of those folks, as there are with PMO, the Glee Club, and all the different musical folks that have actually performed on campus and been ambassadors for the university, just like Edward Elliott envisioned back in the 30s. It's just a great way to get the word out about Purdue as the musical organizations perform around the country. So we hope this session of Facebook Live has brought some of those memories back to you. You got a feel for what students are walking through today to class. You get a look inside a new building, and perhaps we've even turned up some memories of the good times you've had with Purdue performing groups on campus. So on behalf of April and myself, we hope you'll stay tuned next month for our next Facebook Live. Thanks for watching. Hail Purdue.